Would you like to know more?
Welcome to Warmaster Podcast, episode 32 of Adventures in 3D Printing. Firstly, an apology. I've been a little bit absent recently. That's because things in the UK aren't great, and one of my new full-time jobs is homeschooling 9 to 3 Monday to Friday, which kind of eats in to my available time because the stuff I would normally be doing 9 to 3 Monday to Friday now has to find time to be done elsewhere. Such is life. So realistically, I will probably only be doing 1 or maybe 2 at most videos a week, and I'll try to alternate between FDM and resin printing. So this week we're going to look at FDM printing. It's something that since I got my printer in the beginning of January, I've been caning the living hell out of. In fact, the only times I haven't been printing, not 24/7, because I don't like to leave it running overnight, because those of you that know a little bit about this stuff might know that it has a tendency to occasionally overheat. I have had a couple of times where there's been the thermostat, for whatever reason, the thermistor it's called, hasn't done its job, and I've come back and the head, even though it's been set to 190, has been running at 260, and I think, well, what's caused that? Maybe it's a slicing problem, or maybe it's something to do with the thermistor. Anyway, I don't like to leave it running overnight, so I tend to plan for it to finish before I go to bed. I have an app on my phone and an IP webcam installed, which I will show you in one episode. I've talked about it on the main podcast, but I will talk you through what I did and stuff in one of these episodes at some point in the future. So I check in on it regularly. So this machine's been running constantly. The resin printer, not so much. Because I haven't got that much to print at the moment, because I've kind of gone past the stage of just printing for the sake of printing. That's because I actually know how it works, know what I want to achieve, and a bit more than this FDM printer, the parts in a resin printer are consumables. So you are using up a defined finite quantity of the consumables life, so like the light and the screen and whatever. So I've got to the stage now where I use that for stuff when I want stuff, rather than just for the sake of printing stuff, which is what, when you get a new machine, that's what you do, you just print. And I'm still at the stage with this FDM printer, so this is running pretty much constantly. So what have we got on the board here, on my upside down mouse mat? It is a Memoir 44 card holder. This behind here is the one that comes in the box. You get 6 of these, 3 green, 3 blue, but they're crap. And they fall over constantly, they've got no weight to them, and they're just hopeless. I can't stand them. So this one here, you can magnetize them. It's got little 3mm holes all over them, so you can turn them into multi-level and all kinds of stuff. But I'm not getting into the magnetizer side. I just wanted something a little bit more stable, because they're much more stable and a little bit weightier and a little bit wider, so you only need 2 rather than 3. So I printed 4 of these for me and my son, which you can see on when we play games at the end of our school day. I tried to get the school day. Amazon's just delivered. That's another godsend in lockdown. Is as good as ordering from China is for cheapness. The fact that if you've got Amazon Prime, you get next day delivery. So I damaged my mat, which I was going to talk about a bit later, my magnetic print mat. I damaged it a little bit, and I've ordered, and it's already arrived. So I ordered it yesterday. It's here already today. Dog's barking at him. So Amazon's a bit of a lifesaver in lockdown. As bad as that's going to be for when we come out of it, and it's kind of needs must, unfortunately. So Memoir 44 card holder, spot on, lovely. I printed, just so you can see how much stuff I printed for Memoir 44. Can we get this in? There's it's a bit hard to see. Maybe if I lift there's quite a lot of stuff in that box. There. That's how, once you get running with PLA printing, it's like there's no stopping you. Okay, so other things I did, these little... Now, you can see that they aren't perfect, because I print in not the best detail. There's like 0.1 mil level height, 0.2 mil and 0.3. 0.3 is garbage. I'm not even going near that. I don't know why on earth you'd use that. You don't save that much time and it comes out looking like garbage. So 0.2 is the default, which means you can see lining and stuff. And 0.1 I would only use if I was ever to try and attempt to do anything for retail, because obviously if you're selling things, they've got to be as good as you can do. So a big problem I was having is when you set this up, it does have semi-automatic bed leveling, and that moves around the corner, so you can wiggle your paper around in each corner. I set that too tight, and over time, when things were going wrong, I was tightening it, and what that has done is caused a clog. It caused me to burst a pneumatic coupler, which I had to repair. Again, I got the parts from Amazon because next day delivery. So I got a clog, which I needed parts from Amazon to fix, because the kit supplied with this Anycubic Mega V2 is minimal, to say the least. You don't get needles, you don't get any spare parts. The wrenches provided don't even fit the nozzle, so I had to use my own wrench kit. So without Amazon, the machine would have been offline a lot more than it is. So the pneumatic coupler broke. I had to fix that. I had to strip my hot end apart because there was a big clog in it. I had to take it out and get a heat gun in the garage and force a bit of metal through the middle, a metal rod to push it out. And the biggest problem I had, because I'd set the print head height, so your Z height, how far the print head goes off the print bed, so the distance between the print head and the print bed, where the plastic comes out and gets stretched and moved around. That height wasn't big enough, so it was causing deformation. It was causing things like this blob here. It's causing ridges, bigger ridges, and it was also causing the machine, as I said, to clog. Now, what I did, these are now, because the gap isn't big enough, these are kind of melted onto the printed board, the printed magnetic flex plate that you pull off and get your miniatures off. What I should have done is I should have heated the bed up again before I tried to remove these, but I didn't. And it was stuck really hard, and I gave it a yank and it pulled a bloody big chunk of the magnetic print layer. So what you can do, and what I've managed to do, is in Cura, I move the stuff around on the print bed, and then I slice with it, not using that portion of the print bed, which is a solution for sure. But when I do a big object, which I'll show you, I have done some massive objects, but I haven't got any with me to show today, I will need a new print bed. And as the magnetic bottom half is already stuck to my heated bed, and I don't want to get into ripping that off, I've tried to order some new magnetic print beds, and hopefully the top will just stick on my bottom. And I'll use the bottom to base miniatures. And if it doesn't, then I'll deal with that. That'll be the next thing to do. When you get into, especially this type of 3D printing, FDM 3D printing, you become a little bit resourceful, let's say. And you'll find solutions to things. So as you can see, though, these are they're not ideal in the print quality, but I'm not selling them. They're only for use in a board game. And so they'll be fine to me until I get round to reprinting them. So this is a little Bemar 44 movement stand. You put your little 4 infantry in. This works for both Axis and Ally sides, and it just helps you move things around the board a bit quicker, speeds things up, keeps things clean and tidy, and they print off really quick and easy. And I think they look perfectly fine. These were printed before I redid my print head and my leveling and stuff, so the new prints are coming off a little bit better than this. So you've got that. This is for 3 tanks. So when you have your normal tank unit in Bemar 44, is a 3 tank unit, and then this one here, this funky one that doesn't quite fit in the hex, is for 4 tanks. In the actual game, what they say is use 3 tanks and then put a little token on. But the 4 tanks looks pretty bloody intimidating, so I quite like these 4 tank movement trays. So that's what we're using. What else have I been printing? Well, I've printed 3 sets of these epic 6mm Fanboy Space Marine Voltron base kits. So you get 13 different bases, and they are completely different, and if you can be bothered putting them all together, they kind of form a design. I mean, they're quite fun, and Paul will enjoy painting them metallics, no doubt, and then basing his miniatures on them. It's something different. It was from Thingiverse, so it didn't cost a bean. There was no support needed. This is one of the differences between FDM and PLA. FDM and resin. If I was printing these in resin, I would either have to angle them, or maybe not angle them, but I would definitely have to support them and raise them off the bed, and that would cause damage to the undersides and damage to any points where the supports have to connect. So I guess in an ideal world, you'd kind of angle them maybe 30 degrees and then put it on a raft or something and put supports all over everything on the base, and that would damage when they come off. The alternative would be to print them all flat, but that creates a massive force, a lift force, for when your machine's trying to pull these miniatures off the FEP and keep them on the bed. You can end up with all kinds of problems, like they don't quite come off properly. You end up kind of the miniatures half printing, and that's quite a big. If you imagine 13 of these, or especially if you're filling your print bed on a resin printer, you can pack the bugger. In FDM printing, it doesn't really save you any time. So if you've got 13 bases to print, just print the 13 bases, clean up, put a new batch on, print another 13 bases. Where if you were printing these in resin, the temptation would be to print 2, 3, or even 4 sets of these in one go, because you're using the same amount of consumable life doing it that way, and you're maximizing your return. But that would create a massive amount of tear force, having all these flat against the FEP. These kind of things lend themselves to FDM printers, and this is one of the real reasons why I got it. So I can do things like bases and terrain and stuff, bigger pieces, and pieces that you don't want brittle, because these are really sturdy. I only printed them with 20% infill density, so you can obviously print 100% infill density. It's like solid plastic, but these have got kind of like crisscross patterns inside, like a cross pattern, just to save plastic and save time. The base layers are full, and then some of the internal layers aren't full. So we've got some epic bases here. For Mr. Winter, I did him 3 sets of those. I've done him 2 sets of some very new vehicle epic bases. So if you compare it to a regular base, it's slightly shorter, obviously much wider, maybe twice as wide, maybe a little bit more. And again, there's some kind of pattern, some jigsaw. You can put them all together. There they come. You can put them all together and create a jigsaw pattern out of these vehicle bases, and I did him a couple of sets of those vehicle bases. Again, I'm not sure these are on Thingiverse. He sent me a link. I think they were on another one of those kind of free STLE sites. So if you're into Epic and you are a Space Marine fanboy, you can pick those kind of things up. Again, because of the flat surface area, they're probably easier to print in FDM than they are to print in resin. And finally, the last thing I'm going to talk about today is I printed these little things. I only found them this morning, and I've already printed off 3 sets. There are 7 tokens. They're quite small. They're about the width of an epic base. So here's an epic base, and they're about the width of an epic base, which I guess is why so they can go next to the stand and say this is what they've done. This is like an advance order or whatever. And there are 7 little tokens, and printed at 0.2, which is the default. My default, I'm not going to zoom in, my default settings, they take half an hour for 7. This one I might try and do 2 or 3 batches, because they are very small, and it's quite annoying to kind of reset the printer every half an hour. So maybe I'll try and find a way of getting several batches together. So as you can see, you can get a lot of fun, and you can knock out a lot of stuff with an FDM printer. If it's running, say, conservatively, let's say it's running 12 hours a day. Well, in 12 hours, I could print maybe 4 sets of these, which is 2 hours. These were about 4 hours, so 2 sets of those. And I think these were about, the vehicle ones were about 3 hours. So you could probably print a couple of sets of those, a couple of sets of those, and a set of those in one day. You times that by 7 days a week, and you do the math. You do the math. I've gone through this, my second roll of Anycubic PLA. I'm loving it. I don't know why. I mean, it's only 20 quid a roll. It's not really worth fussing around. I see people online asking for cheaper because, well, I guess cheaper is a thing. But 20 quid a roll, and the amount of stuff I printed off that roll was insane. So, as with resin printing, the costs involved with resin printing aren't the resin. Even though the resin is £40 a kilo, it's not the resin. The water washable stuff I use is £40 a kilo. It's the other stuff that goes around it that costs money. Your cleaning solutions, your PPE, and the life of the consumables. With this kind of printing, not only is the stuff you're printing in dirt cheap, like let's even say it's £20 if you want to pay for the branded stuff like I do, then there are no consumables apart from a tiny amount of IPA to clean the bed, and if something goes wrong, you need to replace a part. If you order it from China, I've ordered 2 complete hot ends from China that are in the post, and they were like, oh my god, maybe a £5 each, and that includes everything: wiring, nozzles, silicone boots. I mean, once you've got yourself set up and got spares, and you don't make the mistakes I just made of damaging my print bed, then this kind of printing, this plastic printing, is absolutely buttons, and you can leave it printing constantly. So you just need a different house to store all the printed stuff in. Anyway, it's been a little while since I've been back. I will try and endeavour to do one each week. Next week I'm going to do, for sure, I've printed off Cromarty Forge 10mm Warmaster Slayers. I just need to undercoat them. I've also printed off some terrain that he supplied. One of them I showed you on the podcast, a big bloody church, but I've also printed off some walls and farms and stuff. And I'm pretty sure the Forest Dragon stuff's due. So next week will be focused on the resin printing side. These videos might be a bit longer than the 10-minute ones that I previously did. So maybe they'll be 15, maybe they'll be 20 minutes. And yeah, we'll try and do one a week. Keep printing, everybody. If you've got any questions or any tips, then let me know. It's strange. As much as I love the resin printing, at the moment I've got a real buzz for this stuff, this old-fashioned FDM printing. Just because I think the resin printing is very good, but only for very specific things. One of which I will show you. I printed some 28mm tanks in resin. Oh my god, I'm going to have to do the next 2 in resin, aren't I? So I printed a 28mm Sherman for bolt action, and I also printed a 28mm T28 tank that the Finnish were using, which has like 3 turrets, and it seems massive compared to the Sherman, but some of that is because this stuff isn't always available in the scale you want, so I had to do some conversions, and maybe it's thrown it a little bit bigger. I did measure it afterwards and check that it was in the ballpark. So I think it should have been about 14 centimeters, and the Sherman should have been 10 centimeters. And that, although it doesn't sound like a lot, 40% difference in size is quite big in 28mm. So the T28 is about 40% bigger than the Sherman. But I think the Sherman may have been particularly small for a medium tank. Anyway, that's for another time. Thanks for watching today, and see you next week.